Whenever I'm asked to speak at an event, I have a 3-point mental checklist that I go through before I accept, and it goes something like this. Is it on a subject that I'm interested in? Is it to an audience that I care about? And do I have enough time to prepare in the way that I want to? Now, fortunately, today's event ticked all those 3 boxes even before I came here today. Talking about the rise of the generalist in the specialised technology world is a real passion of mine, because understanding what a generalist is and that it's something that I can relate to helped me really find my place in the business world. So I knew that before I came, but actually just listening to that panel on authenticity before I came up here made me realise that actually perhaps it's even deeper than that. Perhaps realising that I'm a generalist is actually what also helped me find my confidence in the business world. So I'm going to ponder that as I go through my slides today, and I hope that you guys will too. So I not only relate to generalists, I am a generalist, and what I want to do as I go through today is talk to you about what generalists are, why they are so important, and if you're not one, how you might look to become one. And to start my story, I need to go back a few decades, and in the spirit of authenticity, I'm going to take you back to Liverpool in the 70s when I was a child. And in my family, the most important thing in the world was to not be a quitter. If you started something, you had to finish it, whether it was your dinner, whether it was a hobby, or whether it was a subject at school. Once you had dipped your toe in that water, that was it. You were in it for the long haul. So I tried brownies, but I didn't really enjoy it, but it was unlucky. There's 2 years worth of growth left in that uniform, so that was me in. I wanted to have a go at violin lessons, but we've paid for the whole school term, so you're carrying on with them. And I also really took a bit of a shine to calligraphy one time. And when I got bored with that, I was told that it was really unfortunate, but Father Christmas had put 10 pots of ink on the Christmas list, so I was going to have to stick with it. Anybody here come from a family with a similar concept? Yes, exactly. So what I actually did, I mean, I can understand it. We weren't made of money. It's a reasonably sensible approach. However, what it actually stopped me from doing was trying new things, from branching out to find out what suited me, what I did enjoy. Because I knew that if I showed an interest, I was going to have to see it through the end. What I tended to do was shy away. Fortunately, as I got older and I became in charge of my own budget, I realised that in actual fact, I could try new things, because actually it wasn't starting them, it wasn't exploring them in that way. It didn't matter if you didn't see it through to the end. It didn't mean that you were a quitter. What it actually meant was that you were a generalist. And the value of generalists is on the up. So, over the years, the knowledge that I have from trying new things, from starting things, and it's true, I'm not a violin playing brownie with beautiful handwriting, but I have had a really long career in technology. I've heard today about looking at people who've had long careers and using them as role models. I've been a systems analyst, I've been a business consultant, I've been a project manager, I've been a program director, I've been a facilitator, and now I'm Chief Executive Officer of an innovation delivery company. I'm in my 50s, I've had a long career, and I've got no prospect of giving up yet. And I want to share what I've learned with you so that you can have a long, enjoyable career too. So in my job now, it's my interest in numerous things, my drive to try different things, it's not only encouraged, it is the rule. I need to wear many hats. I need to know about product trends, about business development, about customer centricity. And it's knowing all these things that takes me where I am today. So back when I started in technology, almost all project life cycles followed the waterfall approach. Imagine this, we were talking about shoulder pads. This was the early 90s. Everybody had their part to play. You gathered requirements, the business analysts then passed them to systems analysts. We did as is, we did future state, we planned. It took a long time, and it stepped through that process. Over the years, the methodologies moved to Agile and then to DevOps, which meant much faster pace of change, customer involvement at all stages, collaboration with your team members. And your technology has evolved too. We've talked about tech. We've had some great presentations about career in tech today. Technology moves fast, which means your skills need to move fast too. We've looked at the ethics around artificial intelligence. We've talked about machine learning. We've got augmented reality, virtual reality, 5G. Almost as soon as the technology comes into play, it is out of date. It's true to say we all need more knowledge now than we ever had. We all need to have that growth mindset and to think like an entrepreneur, especially in technology and innovation. We all need to be more generalist. So what is a generalist? It's one of those funny words, isn't it? Now, a generalist is somebody who they've got a great level of expertise in at least one specific topic, but additionally, like me, with my violin and my calligraphy, they've got knowledge and interests that span across many different areas, but they connect. They can be authentic because they can dip in and out and bring that knowledge back with them. In fact, in technology, in technical terms, the generalist is a bit like a human API, which definitely wasn't around in the early 90s, but we all know how valuable those are today. Now, over the years, I've kind of gathered some checkpoints that will indicate, are you indeed a generalist? There's 5 that I've come up with. You might be able to add some more, but let's see if you relate to any of these. So how do you know if you are a generalist? Signs that may indicate, are you a generalist? We had some fantastic schoolgirls here earlier. One of the ways in which you could indicate that you're a generalist, you didn't know what you wanted to be when you grew up. Hands up if that was you. Hands up if you still don't. Yeah, exactly. Another sign that might indicate that you're a generalist, your mum can't describe what you do. And yeah. And maybe your friends and your family, and perhaps you can't either. Perhaps you can't easily describe what you do. The third sign, you get bored by things that other people seem to be quite satisfied with. Anybody? Yeah. And you're never happier when you've got numerous projects on the go. What is it that they say? If you want something doing, give it to a busy person. And finally, oh my goodness, this is always an interview question, isn't it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you're a generalist, I bet you can't see yourself somewhere in 5 years. Maybe you can't even see where you want to be in 5 months. So those signs indicate that you might be a generalist, but also you might, and this harks back to what we were talking about earlier with authenticity and labels, you might also have been referred to as some of these things. You might have been referred to as the go-to. Perhaps you've done one of those fantastic self-assessments that codes you and tells you, are you a lion, are you a shark, where do you fit in? Perhaps you've done some assessments that say that you're a polymath or a hybrid. Perhaps you're called the all-rounder, the fixer, or even the jack of all trades. Now, what's interesting about these labels is they all indicate that you are a person of value. You all want to have fixers and go-tos and jack of all trades on your team. But funnily enough, isn't it strange that when we are good at a lot of things, it sometimes makes us feel that actually we're not really good at anything. What's the most common second part of jack of all trades? Master of none. Nobody wants to wear that label, do they? But in actual fact, the way that technology is moving, the way that customer centricity is moving, being the fixer, being the hybrid, being the jack of all trades, being that go-to person means that you are a generalist. And the skills that you have and the adaptability that you have means that in reality, the future is going to be where you will really thrive. So I'm going to just talk through 3 generalists so that you can recognize them and see where they've come from. The first one I'm going to talk about is Steve Jobs. Obviously, sadly, not with us anymore. Most of you will know Steve Jobs as a visionary in the tech world. He was co-founder of Apple in the 70s. And Apple, a really visionary company, they created one of the first publicly available computers in the Apple Mac. And then over the decades, they also created some really revolutionary technology with, I'm sure some of you aren't even here to remember an iPod, but they did create an iPod. And then they created the iPhone. So Steve Jobs wasn't a techie. He didn't know how to code. He didn't know how to create wireframes, didn't know any of those things. But he could use his vision to determine the way that technology was going. And in actual fact, Steve Jobs was a generalist. One of the reasons that the Apple Mac is so, the designers are so fond of the Apple Mac is that it was one of the first computers that didn't have green text on a black screen. And the reason for that, I knew I had something in common with Steve Jobs, he was a calligraphy fan. And because he was a calligraphy fan, what he felt was, wouldn't it be amazing if we could give a piece of technology that had amazing fonts and amazing ways to create design and vision? And Steve Jobs was a generalist. Going back even further to the early 1800s, this is a STEM icon, Ada Lovelace. Who knows who Ada Lovelace is? Brilliant. International Women's Day coming up. Ada Lovelace always comes up on the list. Ada Lovelace was born in 1815. She is the daughter of Lord and Lady Byron. Lord Byron was a poet, a very famous poet. Now, because she was from a wealthy family, she was to be educated. However, her mother had a distrust of the arts. She also had a distrust of Lord Byron, it actually turned out. So she tried to channel Ada into mathematical and science route, which Ada did enjoy, but she also loved languages. She did love nature. She also did love the arts. So she was able to bring together all those skills. And one day, she was asked if she would use her language skills, her French in this instance, to transcribe a paper from an engineer, an inventor who was looking at computing. So she used her skills to transcribe that paper, but she also looked at it, she added her own notes, she added her own thoughts, she added her own view of where she felt she could improve this paper. That paper was written by Charles Babbage, who's now known as the inventor of the computer. And what Ada actually did was she created the first algorithm for computing probability. And she did that because she had a variety of skills. She was a generalist. In the middle here, this is the woman who really inspires me. I was listening when you were talking earlier about who inspires you in the technology world. This is Dr. Anne-Marie Imifidon. I am a fangirl of Dr. Anne-Marie. I could talk for a long time. She was a child prodigy. She completed her maths and her computing A-levels aged 12 and 13. She studied mathematics at Johns Hopkins University in the US when she was 13. She speaks 6 languages. She is an advocate for corporate social responsibility. She set up the STEMettes to advocate for girls, young women, and non-binary people in STEM in 2004. And, give a generalist another job. She's just taken on the role of a presenter in the maths field and Countdown. So Dr. Anne-Marie is absolutely an icon, but she's also a generalist. So those three people are generalists, but we're technologists. We love to look at designs and maps and processes. So one of the companies that I really am another fangirl of is IDEO. They're a global design and innovation company. They, in actual fact, worked with Apple in 1980 to create the first publicly available mouse. Here it is. Not that dissimilar to what we've got now. So IDEO are definitely an organisation to follow if you don't already. What they did in the early 2000s, they realised that technology was moving at such a pace that they needed to take their experts and they needed to give them a broader skill set. They created I people and T people. They called people by shapes. We're women. We've been used to being called apples and pears. Now we can be I and T as well. The way in which they categorised the I-shaped person was somebody with very deep domain expertise. They wanted that, but what they actually also wanted is they wanted somebody who had a broader cross-section of knowledge so they could bring different themes and different aspects in, and they called that a T-shaped person. IDEO often lead the way, so what they call T has now become known now as a generalist. And let's have a look at how a generalist works in real life. Now, of course, specialists are still very important. Let's take the role of a system tester. Any system testers in the room? Anybody done system testing in their career? Yay, here we go. So if you're a specialist and you're focused on system testing, then you're involved in functional testing, you're involved in script building, you're involved in planning automated testing and manual testing, and you really focus on that. However, with the advent of multiple projects, multidisciplinary teams, you may well add different strings to your bow. And if you were a generalist, a T-shaped person, you're going to be used in different ways as well. Perhaps you're involved in user training, perhaps you're involved in project management. Somebody spoke earlier about baking a cake and being a singer and a dancer. You know, these sorts of things are what T-shaped people really thrive and generalists thrive on. So in this example, perhaps you've got an interest in environmental and social governance. So you've just recently started on the Sustainability Committee at work, and you're using your knowledge about that to create blogs and interest in the company's Slack channels, the social media and LinkedIn. So you can see how having more generalist skills actually rounds you out as a person. You're all sitting at tables. I was going to freak out the schoolgirls earlier and say, back in my day, phones only did one thing, make calls. However, nowadays your phone is a generalist. So you've got your 6 or 7 phones on your table. It's got one operating system, but it's also then used to carry out multiple applications that are actually seemingly unrelated. Imagine how big your pockets or your handbag would have to be if you wanted to carry your camera around, your record collection, your address book, etc. Not to mention your IoT sensors and your tracking devices. And actually the pace of change of a phone is a really good metaphor for the pace of change of technology. When you get a call from O2 or Vodafone or whichever service you're with, and they say, oh, you're eligible for an upgrade. If you wanted to, you could change your phone every year. You could probably change it more frequently. The technology on your phone is out of date before you've even taken it out of its box. The life of that technology is so fast-paced that it's far more reduced than it would have been previously. So, the skills that we need to develop, we were talking about that you said soft skills, I'm going to pick up on that later. You said you didn't like soft skills, which I agree with you about. The World Economic Forum always does a number of reports into the lifespan of the skills that we develop at work and that we use at work. And they've said that in their opinion, up until recently, the average person would have 12 jobs throughout their career, which seems a lot, but is probably about right. That is only going to increase. We are all working longer. We have hybrid work worlds. We have different careers. We have different opportunities. So 12, who knows, if we give this presentation next year, maybe it's going to go up to 14 or 15. Yet, the half-life of the skill that we learn when we start to work is going down. The World Economic Forum categorized skills in a number of different ways. The two I'm going to pick out: perishable and durable. Perishable skills. Perishable skills are those specific fast-paced tech skills that are, to a degree, maybe outdated as soon as you've started to implement them. And the WEF says that the half-life of perishable skills is decreased to 2.5 years. That means if you bring an apprentice on board today to work on a specific app, in just over 2 years' time, what you've taught them will only be 50% as relevant. However, on the opposing end of the scale, this is where generalists come in, durable skills. Durable skills are what we maybe used to call soft skills. And now we align those in innovation to discovery skills. Those are things like mindset, creativity, emotional intelligence, leadership, all of the things that our fantastic panel were talking about earlier. Durable skills, the lifespan of those is going up. So the half-life of durable skills is over 7 years now. These are where you, as generalists, really thrive. You are future-proof in your career. So let's have a quick look at what they are. I work in innovation. We deal with discovery skills all the time. We teach and implement discovery activities with business people who, in some ways, maybe this is not natural to them, but to generalists, it is. We question. So what, why, how? Somebody was talking about having a young child earlier. Apparently, 4-year-olds question their mothers at least 400 times a day. Does it feel that way? It does, doesn't it? And yet, as adults, we grow out of that. We stop questioning. Our boss gives us something to do. Okay, we just go off and do it. We don't ask why, how. We don't seek to explore it in more detail. Generalists do. They also observe, they look around them, they see what's happening. They naturally, almost by osmosis, take in detail that other people might miss. They experiment. Oh my goodness, I wish my mum had agreed with this back in the day. In innovation, we try things, we test, we prototype, we iterate, we experiment, and we fail fast. Generalists don't mind it when things go wrong because they look to see what went wrong and how they can improve it next time. Generalists are fantastic at associative thinking. It's a really intrinsic skill to have. That is where, when we talked about making banana bread, we talked about dancing, we talked about singing, you're learning skill in one activity that if you did but know it is relevant in another. And that's when you bring together seemingly unrelated activities to make a fantastic whole. And they also network. They naturally network both with ideas and with what we're doing here today. They meet, they communicate, they are collaborative. So they are generalists. Now, I talked about specialists before. Of course, we're not going to forget, we're always going to need specialists in both the tech world and the real world. You don't want your GP to take your appendix out any more than you want your compliance officer to represent you in court. Most of it, anybody in this auditorium here today, not got legacy systems at work. Exactly, especially in tech. We've got legacy systems where we've got some code that may have even been around for decades. You've got COBOL programmers who are still in demand in some areas, and COBOL was built in the 1950s. Interesting fact, there are still 200 billion lines of live COBOL code live today. So you still need specialists for those tasks, those techniques, and those tools that are specialist, but Will Java still be around, and Python? Maybe will we still be coding in that in 70 years? Probably not. But will we still need to have those durable skill set, that coding mentality? Probably yes. So, in an organisation, your ultimate world would be to bring together those generalists within your team and to celebrate both their differences and their similarities. Because when you have got a team full of generalists, what you have is you have a team that is collaborative, that is creative, and that is confident. Collaborative, of course, because generalists are naturally seekers of people and interested in what you're doing and why you're doing it and how can it get involved with me. They are creative because, again, those innovation skills that they are interested in using means that they conjure up new ideas and they take things from what they've learned before. But also, they are confident because instead of feeling bad that they are not specialist in the area that they think that somebody else may be, they've become rooted in reality. They know that being multi-skilled, multifaceted, and generalists means that they know their true value and they no longer feel that imposter syndrome because they know having a broad range of knowledge is what's going to make them future focused. So very quickly, if you're not one, how do you become one? 5 little steps that I think would help you in that area. Number 1, say yes to new opportunities. Say yes, just say yes. One of my favourite sayings, if somebody offers you an opportunity that you want, say yes and figure out how to do it afterwards. Either make those opportunities yourself, ask at work, put yourself forward, or if somebody does say yes, if somebody does ask you if you want an opportunity, say yes, and then hook on to somebody who can help you understand how to deliver it. Number 2, maybe you can dance later, I don't know that I will. Do the hustle. Do the side hustle. Okay, this is something that I love. A lot of people start a project either for profit or just for passion outside of work. The skills that you learn there will be of immeasurable value. You will learn about yourself, you will learn about customer centricity, you will learn about marketing, you will learn more about social platforms than you may do now. So by doing a side hustle, you will absolutely bring more skills in that will be valuable in your day job. This was touched on earlier as well. Describe who you are. Many people, if they are generalists, when asked, what do you do? They say, a bit of everything actually. Now, yes, they do maybe a bit of everything actually, but that doesn't sound very inspiring, does it? Practice how to explain yourself to people. And I say practice because it doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. So in the case of our systems tester from earlier, what that person could do is they could say, I'm in charge of the system test team, but I also work on training and project management, and my interest in environmental change has just led me to become the comms leader on the company committee, and I'm going to be working on that too going forward. That's the person that I want to connect with. Practice your discovery skills. Wherever you go, events like this, in your organisation and social media, question, observe, network, experiment, associate. Practice makes perfect. Or actually, practice means you get progressively better. In innovation, that's what we want. And finally, become a perpetual learner, but don't think that happens by accident. In our project life and in our structured world, we have to make time for this. Carve out 10, 15 minutes a day to listen to a podcast, read a new book, read a paper. Do something specific, but make time for it and make sure you do it. The world is moving really fast. You can be ahead of the game if you move fast with it. So, finally, it's never too late, no matter how old or how young you are. It's never too late to become more generalist. Well, it might be too late to join the brownies, but let's put that to one side. But if you want to learn an instrument, if you want to do calligraphy, whatever you want to do, pick up your internet, your phone, and book on and do that now. It's never too late to actually develop those future-focused skills. And what I will say is, with the way that technology is changing and customer centricity is moving, if you're not one, you need to be one, because it really is the time for generalists in the specialised tech world. So thank you very much.